The taxi ridey. The morning had already begun with inconvenience. My driver called just after 9. His voice sounded apologetic in that rehearsed way people adopt when they know the problem cannot be fixed. "Boss, the car broke down. I've called a taxi for you. It should be there in 10 minutes. I told him that was fine. At my age, delays no longer felt like emergencies. They were simply part of the day. The taxi arrived exactly when he said it would. A plain sedan. Clean enough. The driver stepped out briefly to open the rear door, then returned to the wheel without a word. I noticed the mirror first. He adjusted it twice, as though trying to see my face more clearly. For the first few minutes we drove through the slow morning traffic in silence. The Hudson on the right, dull gray under low clouds. Offices waking up. Then the driver spoke. "Sir, forgive me if I'm mistaken. But I think I used to work for you." His voice carried a careful uncertainty. Not hopeful. Not nervous. Just cautious. I leaned forward slightly and studied the back of his head, the side of his face reflected in the mirror. Time rearranges people. Lines appear, hair disappears. But then I saw it, the eyes. "You're Daniel, aren't you?" I said. He smiled faintly, not the smile of someone pleased to be recognized, more like someone relieved that he didn't have to explain himself. "Yes, sir. I worked in your garden. Years ago." I remembered now. Quiet man, reliable. My wife used to compliment the way the roses came back stronger every spring. "You disappeared suddenly," I said. The words slipped out more bluntly than intended. Daniel nodded once, eyes on the road. "Yes, sir." Another stretch of silence settled between us, the kind that carries unfinished business. Finally I asked the obvious question. "Why did you leave?" He let out a small breath. "I didn't leave." The car slowed at a light. "I was fired." That surprised me more than I expected. I had not been involved in the household staffing for years. My daughter-in-law had gradually taken over the management of those things after my son married her. "Fired," I said. "For what reason?" Daniel hesitated. Not theatrically. Not dramatically. Just the kind of hesitation someone uses when deciding whether a truth is worth saying. "I was told it was because I had become careless with equipment," he said. "But that wasn't the real reason." The light turned green. The car moved again. "And the real reason?" I asked. His hands tightened slightly on the wheel. "I overheard something I wasn't supposed to hear." I felt a quiet tightening in my chest. "What kind of thing?" Daniel looked at me through the mirror again. "It involved your daughter-in-law." That was enough to make the air in the car feel smaller. I leaned back into the seat. "What about her?" He shook his head slowly, almost apologetically. "I never meant to hear it." I was trimming the hedges near the back patio. The doors were open. She was inside speaking with someone. Speaking about what? Daniel paused again. When he continued, his voice was softer. "She was arguing with your son." I waited. Traffic moved in slow waves along the avenue. "She told him she couldn't keep pretending forever," Daniel said. "That eventually someone in the family would ask questions." A strange feeling moved through me. "What questions?" Daniel swallowed. "About the child." For a moment I didn't understand. Then I did. My grandson. The boy who had arrived only 8 months after their wedding, the one we had all welcomed without hesitation. "What about him?" I asked quietly. Daniel kept his eyes forward. "She told your son that the boy wasn't his." The words did not arrive like a shock. They arrived like something sliding into place. Old memories shifted suddenly. My son's brief disappearance the winter after the child was born. My daughter-in-law's strange defensiveness whenever anyone mentioned the timing of the pregnancy. Arguments I had overheard but dismissed as young marriage stress. "You're sure?" I asked. Daniel nodded once. "She said it very clearly." The car continued moving through the city, but my thoughts had stopped somewhere years earlier. "What happened after that?" I asked. Daniel gave a small shrug. 2 days later, the house manager told me my services were no longer needed. "You think they knew you heard?" "I think someone saw me near the patio." I looked out the window for a long moment. Families build their lives on small agreements, some spoken, some quietly ignored. Sometimes the truth sits nearby for years without anyone wanting to touch it. Finally I spoke again. "Why tell me now?" Daniel's answer came without hesitation. "I didn't plan to." He gestured lightly toward the windshield. "But when I saw you in the mirror, I thought maybe you deserved to know why I lost that job." The taxi turned onto the street where my office building stood. I could see the entrance ahead. For a few seconds I said nothing. Then I leaned forward. "Yes, sir." "Do you still have the number you used when you worked for us?" "Yes." "Write it down for me before I get out." He glanced at me again through the mirror, surprised. I wasn't angry. I wasn't calm either. I was something in between. Someone who had just been handed a piece of information that would quietly rearrange the structure of his family. Daniel pulled to the curb and reached for a pen. He wrote his number on the back of a receipt and handed it to me. "I'm not promising anything," I said, folding the paper into my coat pocket. "I understand. But if someone was dismissed unfairly for simply hearing the truth, that deserves a second look." He nodded slowly. I opened the door and stepped onto the sidewalk. The city noise returned immediately. People talking, buses hissing, the ordinary rhythm of the morning. Behind me, the taxi remained at the curb for a moment longer. Neither of us said goodbye. Some truths don't demand immediate action. They simply wait. And once you know them, you carry them differently than before.